Okay, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Umpisa na tayo ng ating discussion, ng ating lecture today. So ko lang sabihin na I'm reporting to you live from the UP School of Economics Library. It's the first time nata na pumasok ako ng library in such a long time. Anyway, just for today kasi we have series of meetings and I have to be in class. I have to be in those meetings in between classes. Okay, so anyway, kung nabalitaan nyo na mga nangyayari sa Pilipinas sa ngayon, naisip ko kanina umaga habang kumakain ako ng almusal doon sa balita na may maraming mga instances, maraming nagaganap sa Pilipinas na pwede nyong i-apply na ang inyong mga natutunan. Halimbawa, tataas ang presyo ng bigas na 3 piso. So, kanina pinag-uusapan ano magiging impact nito. Maraming tumaas ng presyo, no? Yung presyo ng gulay tumaas ng 50%. Grabe. Na 50% ang tinaas ng gulay, 20% ang tinaas ng baboy, at 3 piso ang itinaas ng, ay 3 piso ang itataas ng bigas. No, so kanina sabi ko, this would be a perfect chance for my students to apply. What would be the relevant concept na pwedeng i-apply dito sa nangyayari ngayon? Well, if we ask, will demand change? And according to consumer theory, you think demand will change? The price, of course, the price rose, so there will be a decline in demand. But will the decline in demand be a lot for rice? For each commodity, if you think about it. For rice, for instance, the 3 peso rice in price of rice, 3 pesos would be, kasi magkano na siya ngayon? 6. So it's like 60 pesos yata ang presyo ng bigas ngayon or something, 55 or something. So magkakaroon ng pagtaas na kung 60 siya, 6 pesos ang 10%, so 5% ang itataas ng presyo ng bigas. So do you think that the price of the demand for rice will will decline a lot, given that the price has risen? And the answer is because this is an essential good. This is a staple in Philippine diet. Then anong klaseng elasticity? Sabi ko sana concept, nasabi ko na elasticity concept, di ba? Inelastic, exacto, Angelo. It's an inelastic demand. So, marami pang maghintay kayo, marami pang tataas ng mga presyo. And application of what we've learned in class really is expectation of behavior. So, with the price increase, simple concept of elasticity will give you a clue as to how much the change in demand will be. That doesn't mean that it's all well and good. It just means that because Filipinos can't give up the consumption of rice, for instance, it means, and they have a fixed budget, diba? Essentially, may income effect, na katulad ng pinag-aralan natin. So people will feel poorer as a result. Because their purchasing power is much less. So what might happen would be they would have to give up some of the goods, some of their expenses, and some of the budget that they've been doing, that they've been paying for, in order to protect their consumption of rice and vegetables, and perhaps they might give up pork. Well, vegetables is essential. No? So it's kind of sad that 50% ang itinaas ng gulay. And again, another concept to think about, bakit tumataas ang presyo? Which curve shifted? Kasi tumataas ang presyo, di ba? Demand and supply, intersection of demand and supply yan eh. Which curve shifted, which resulted in the rise in price? Anyone? Nakalimutan nyo na, talagang nakatuon na kayo ng pansin sa inyong susunod na exam. Anong curve ang nag-shift? Demand and supply lang yan. Anyone? Sa chat. Wala ba sa chat? Walang sasagot maski sa chat? Which curve shifted? Bakit nagkaroon ng increase? Supply. Correct, si Mira. The supply curve shifted up or down? Ibig sabihin was, anong shift ng supply curve, di ba? Upward sloping and demand. Ang supply curve is going to shift to the right or shift to the left? Up, so bali to the left. Okay, bakit? Tama si Mira, yes, to the left. That's correct, Mira. But why did the supply curve shift to the left? What caused it? What will make the supply curve shift? It will be anyone. Sige, hula lang. Okay lang, libre namang manghula. What made the supply curve shift to the left? Increase in the price of input. Correct, si Joanne. Because the price of inputs increased. Particularly what? Sa gulay, what increased? Gas. Correct. Tama din si Joanne. It's the price of gas. Kasi it's transportation cost, di ba? Fuel and transportation, correct ratio. That's the reason why. So it's quick application of what you've learned. I mean, it's kind of fun. Or ako lang ba who thought that this was fun application of what we've learned. Anyway, there are many things that you will learn in class, and some of which will be able to apply as you read more about what's going on in the economy in the Philippines. So let's proceed with the lesson. So last time, nagtapos tayo doon sa gitna ng discussion tungkol sa imperfect competition. So, sige, so let me go back to the slides and surprisingly, hindi naman surprisingly, but I'm enjoying the fact na malakas ang signal today dito sa school. Okay, so so nandito na tayo sa imperfect competition. No? So na balik-aralan lang natin ng kaunti kung ano yung mga napag-usapan natin. No? So sa spectrum ng ng economic organization or types of economic organization, nandun yung pinaka-ideal, yung tinatawag na perfect competition, kung saan madaming suppliers, madaming firms, and not the firms are not one of the firm is big or has influence, not necessarily like large in size, but perhaps large in influence. So not one of the firms is large enough to influence the price. So sa kabilang spectrum, sa kaduluduluhan naman, ay yung monopoly, which we'll talk about in a little bit. No? Pero in between, really, kung hindi ka perfect competition, you must be in perfect competition, tapos maraming klase ng imperfect competition. Okay, so doon sa mga examples na tiningnan natin, na pinag-usapan natin, no? So perfect competition, then there's monopoly. In between would be yung oligopoly, na special type, yung duopoly, yung dalawa lang ang firms. Tapos you have monopolistic competition. Okay, now pag-uusapan natin yan isa-isa, no? Pero parang review lang, kapag ka sinabing monopoly, iisa lang ang seller. Alright, kung familiar kayo dito, meron bang sitwasyon na iisa lang ang seller? Traditionally, governments or economies in general are uncomfortable and do not like monopoly type of economic organization or industrial organization kasi iisa seller eh. So, kumbaga, that always results in higher price. Not because the monopolist is an evil doer, but because yung hindi siya kasi price taker. So yung profit maximizing condition niya ay iba. And that profit maximizing condition that the monopolist follows, which we'll talk about in a little bit, results in higher consumer prices. It's not because he's evil or he's taking advantage. He's just following yung profit maximizing condition. Alright, ganun din naman sa oligopoly. Sa oligopoly, kakaunti ang sellers, no? Duopoly yung dalawa, kapag more than 2, 3, ganyan, oligopoly na yun in general. But ang definition ng oligopoly ay few firms, and at least one of the firms is large enough to influence the price. Alright. Now, may mga examples na tayong binigay niya nung nakaraan. Tapos yung isa pang interesting, to me at least, yung monopolistic competition na tinatawag, na kung saan madaming sellers, pero each seller, perhaps through advertising or marketing or some sort of uh, product differentiation or product differentiating activity, they have projected the image that their product is slightly different from the other products when in fact they're the same. No? Example nga nito yung mga soft drinks na or even gasoline. No? Parang dami-daming sellers ng gasoline pero somehow may brand recognition. The fact that people recall brand, that's already product differentiation. Kasi parang, Uni Oil is different from Shell and Shell is different from Petron when in fact they're all the same. They're all gasoline. Kaya lang somehow through marketing, sasabihin, hindi, mas may power ang Shell. Mas may power ang Petron, whatever. It's not necessarily, they could alter very little alteration doon sa product and it will become different na. No? That's the marketing, at least that's the projection. Yun na lang sa soft drink, di ba? Pag ininom ni Sarah Geronimo, iba na yan. Kaysa pagka yung isang kabilang soft drink naman na ininom naman ni Bea Alonso. Through imaging, through branding, this product differentiation is achieved. No? And this is called monopolistic competition kasi it sounds like there's only one seller of that type of the good, but it's only a differentiated good. So and there's many sellers, kaya pinag-combine yung concept ng monopoly and perfect competition. It's called monopolistic competition. Then in most cases, as I said, differentiation is perception and justification and point. Tapos meron din tayong konsepto ng pagkakaiba noong tinatawag na competition and rivalry. Pag competition, we associate this with yung ideal situation wherein firms are perfectly competitive. Yung rivalry is associated more with oligopolists. No, because there are a few firms, say gagamitin natin, they're competing with each other. Yes, they are, but just to clarify, it's not competing like the way that perfectly competitive firms compete. They are rivals. So that's a major difference. So the market may be oligopolistic in nature, but there could still be price wars because of rivalry. So there could be like Cebu Pacific and Philippine Airlines, and oligopolistic sila, dalawa lang sila. Apat pala sila kasi meron pang Air Asia. Tapos there's another one, Tiger Airline. But they could be trying to outdo each other through price wars. And that action of trying to outdo each other is referred to as rivalry. Right? So rivalry creates behavior to increase profit and market share. So the objective of the oligopolies is to try to capture as much of the market as possible, to be as close as possible to being a monopolist. And because the monopolist has the highest price ever, because siya lang ang seller. And rivalry could result from advertising, price cuts, and product improvement. So yung rivalry, the way that they try to outdo each other is through price war. It could be through yung marketing, or mga gimmicks, like kapag nag-Philippine Airlines ka, parang associate kung sino man ang endorser ng Philippine Airlines, and you feel like you're associated with that endorser. So it feels like Philippine Airlines is different. Actually, it works for me kasi kapag when I choose between Cebu Pacific and Philippine Airlines, I have a different feeling. Pag sinabing, ang ticket mo Philippine Airlines versus ang ticket mo Cebu Pacific, iba yung feeling ko. For somehow, naapektuhan ako ng advertising. Even though I try not to. Even yung image lang na pagka Philippine Airlines ang uniform ng mga flight attendants, parang business attire, as opposed to yung kapag uniforme naman ng mga taga Cebu Pacific, parang attend ng gen meet ng isang org. No, so yung ganun lang, that by itself creates this difference. No, it's a kind of like a differentiation, kaya lang hindi kasi sila marami. So it's only kaya rivalry siya. So konti lang sila. So so I have a different sense of or feeling, willingness to pay, for instance, to pay for a Philip PAL ticket versus a Cebu Pacific ticket. All right. So there are different ways that the oligopolies could start rivalry. Okay. Now to help you understand, remember this. Ito yung market structure organization natin. So you have perfect competition on one extreme, which is at the left side, and then you have imperfect competition on the right side. Under imperfect competition, you have different types. No? So you have somehow this graph is wrong. So perfect competition is na-move yun. I'm so sorry. Hindi ko to napansin. Yung wala na tong perfect competition na yung monopolistic competition yan dapat eh. So anyways, under imperfect competition, just disregard. Nagbabother ako. I should correct this later. Wala ito. All right. That this is supposed to be monopolistic competition. All right. Tapos ito oligopoly yan. So sorry. I will correct this later after class. Okay, so just as an aid so that you'll remember how it is. Okay. All right. So now, what are the causes of market imperfection? Let's move on. So first is, bakit merong market imperfection? Why is it that despite efforts to try to move the economy towards perfect competition, there's still imperfections in the market that causes either the oligopoly or monopolistic competition to happen? The first reason is because of economy of scale. Now, ano yung economy of scale? If you recall, when we say increasing economy of scale, ibig sabihin yung size, the size that affects the cost. No? As a result, pag sinabi may economy of scale yan eh. So, ibig sabihin pag maramihan mas mura, di ba? You've heard of that. Kaya mas mura daw sa Pure Gold or sa Shopwise, etc. Kasi in bulk yung bilihan doon. So, ibig sabihin itong Pure Gold, etc., they have the capacity to buy in huge amount. Kaya as a result, kung sa operations nila malaki, the expanded operation reduces the average cost. No? So ito yung as a result of the size, alright, nagkick in yung returns, increasing returns to scale. Kaya yung tinatawag nilang may positive economy of scale. Kasi yung habang lumalaki yung production or yung operation ng firm, lumiliit yung average cost. Diba? Napag-usapan na natin ito dati na kapag may increasing returns to scale, may constant returns to scale, and merong decreasing returns to scale. And then may mga dahilan kung paanong nagkakaroon ng increasing returns to scale, constant returns to scale, constant returns to scale at saka decreasing returns to scale. One of which is the size of the operation. Sometimes the size of the operation results in increasing returns to scale. Because of the expansion, it reduces the average cost. Sometimes naman, an expansion could result in decreasing returns to scale because of management issues kasi mas mahirap i-manage ang mas malaki. And that could reduce yung efficiency ng inputs. No? So, but in this case, one reason for market imperfection is because of the size. Kasi dito sa imperfect competition, we're talking about size of the firm, yung fact that the size of the firm matters, that it causes the firm to have an advantage. So in this case, if an expansion reduces the average cost, kasi if lang naman ito, it doesn't always happen, recall. But if expansion reduces the average cost, which is due to increasing returns to scale, then large firms would have an advantage over small firms, and large firms would drive the small firms out of the industry. So if expansion creates a decline in the average cost that the firm faces, then larger firms would have smaller average cost for each good that it produces. Therefore, it will charge a lower price, or it can charge a lower price. Diba? Now, if they can charge a smaller price and because they're large, so alam ng mga tao ay mura sa Pure Gold or mura sa kung saan mang grocery halimbawa, then pupunta ang mga tao doon, and then that would reduce the profitability of smaller groceries or smaller firms. As a result, they could go bankrupt, and in the end, they might just leave the industry. As a result, when they do that, then the imperfect competition actually becomes more acute, no? Kasi kung dati, let's say ano sila, 10 silang firms, no? Tapos merong isa who's really large, no? Then bumaba yung average cost niya, assuming that people have access, I mean, you can access all of the firms, don't have a problem accessing the firms, in terms of transportation, then pupunta sila doon sa pinakamura. As a result, no ba, mawawala ng profit yung iba, maaaring magsara na yan isa-isa, hanggang sa ang matira na lang ay maybe a few, maybe tatlo, maybe kung minsan, kung malas-malas pa, isa na lang talaga, the biggest one. So economy of scale is one cause of market imperfection. The other is what we call barriers to entry. Ibig sabihin, hindi makapasok yung mga industry o yung mga firms doon sa industry. Alright, so what are barriers to entry? These refer to factors that make it hard, if not impossible, for new firms to enter the market. Now, ano ba example nito? Kung minsan yung mismong size ng investment, ang daming malaki ang size ng pera na kakailanganin in order to compete. Ang example nito, mining, kaya konti lang ang mga minahan sa Pilipinas kasi napakalaki ng capital outlay na kailangan, ng financing na kailangan to engage in that. So, ano pa ba? Minsan yung pangalan nito, yung cost to transact, yung pagkuha ng mga business permits, etc. So kung maliit ka tapos ang cost to transact ay napakalaki, mata-turn off ka. Maliit ka na kumpanya tapos ang laki ng cost to transact, mata-turn off ka. Baka hindi ka na papasok doon sa business, i-invest mo na lang yung pera mo sa stock market. No, maaring maging ganun. As a result, only those that can afford yung mga transaction costs na yan would enter the market. No? So these barriers to entry, there are many forms of barriers to entry, and you'd have to identify, be able, using logic and reason, you can tell whether something is causing a barrier to entry, no, for firms. So barriers to entry create limits to competition because there are only those that can withstand or overcome the barriers to entry are able to enter. So the fact that not everyone can enter the market will result in imperfect competition. Because perfect competition, remember, one of the assumptions in perfect competition is there are no barriers to entry. There are many competitors, many firms, small firms, meaning not one firm is large enough to affect the price. And the other assumption is that there are no barriers to entry. Okay, so while economy of scale is one type of barrier, which is cost related, there are other barriers to entry, such as yung patents. Are you still there? I was cut off. Nawala ng internet. Andyan pa kayo?
Yes po.
Yes, sir.
Alright. Nakat ba ako at all? Kasi nawalan ako ng internet for like 5 seconds. Where did we stop? Anong topic? Anong sinasabi ko?
Patents po, sir.
Patents, okay. Nawala ng internet as in naglumabas dito ay connecting. Okay, give me a second ulit at pabalik tayo dun sa slides. Sandali lang. UP naming mahal talaga, oo. Ayan, okay. So, a patent is a legal barrier. No? So, again, it's a license to produce the product. And this is normally given only to inventors. So, FYI, most patents, once granted, will give the inventor something like, or the discoverer, something like 50 years. So, siya lang ang pwedeng mag-produce nung ganung klase ng produkto. So, monopolist siya in that sense. Or kung dalawa sila, no? In the case of yung sa COVID vaccine, slightly different, although essentially similar. Essentially the same yung Moderna at saka ng Pfizer. So, but may patent silang dalawa lang. Hindi pala, no? Kasi emergency case ang COVID. So, sinuspend yung patent. Pero normally, may patent, nakadiscover ka ng type ng lasa ng pagkain, ikaw lang ang may restaurant na gano'n, may patent doon, then ikaw lang ang pwedeng mag-produce nun. Okay, high investment cost or gate cost, nabanggit ko na kanina. Okay, barriers to entry din yung government-imposed protectionist restrictions against free trade. Ito yung, although baka ang isipin nyo yung supply kasi is local lang. No? Supply is both local and international. So supply for, let's say for chocolates, is both local chocolates and international or foreign made or manufactured chocolates. Now, kapag ka nag-barrier to entry ang gobyerno at sabihin niya, hindi, maglalagay ako ng barrier to entry do sa papasok sa bansa na imported chocolates, that will cause imperfect competition as well. Kasi, then you only have the local producers. Kasi pag sinabing perfect competition, no barrier to entry, including imported. So, they will compete with local manufacturers. Kaya the local manufacturers have to also find ways to reduce their cost para makakompete sa foreigners. Kaya kapag may protectionist policy ang gobyerno, most governments actually have to reduce their protectionist policies kasi meron na tayong international trade agreements na wala ng mga trade barriers. Pero meron pa rin, may certain level pa rin ng protectionism. That is a barrier to entry. All right. Another is yung law that restrict foreign nationals from owning businesses in the country. So that's another restriction sa pagpasok sa industry, which will result in imperfect competition. Okay. All right. Another cause of imperfect competition, yung advertising and product differentiation. We've talked about this not so long ago. But differentiation or yung advertising creates brand loyalty, which then will, essentially put or create an advantage for firms that have engaged in, in marketing. So advertising can increase the market power of a firm and discourage potential competition. And that actually happens kasi yung mga produkto or mga firms that don't have a budget for marketing or for advertising don't stand a chance, especially now. Right. So advertising and a product differentiation also results in imperfect competition. Advertising can create demand for differentiated products that create a very small market for the differentiated product. So parang may niche market, tinatawag na niche marketing, niche lang siya. Yung word na niche. Niche. Ayaw magsulat. Niche. All right. So Advertising and product differentiation will make demand for the good to be so small that large number of firms will not be profitable to operate. Kasi para bang iiba yung product, no? Parang special type of soft drink or special type of noodles, whatever. So and coupled with the fact that the let's say a potential firm, which probably, let's say, a potential firm can replicate the same product, very close, but does not have marketing budget, won't be able to compete. Parang generic yan at saka yung branded drugs or branded na medicine. Generic yung walang walang pangalan. So pag sinabi mong vitamin C tapos generic versus Fern C, which is branded vitamin C, there's a tendency for people, if they can afford it, to buy Fern C, even though a generic brand or a generic counterpart exists. All right, so this product differentiation and advertising results in a natural monopoly situation. Pag sinabing natural monopoly, ibig sabihin, the industry or the market is so small that to have more than one isn't profitable. Every time there's more than one, the second one doesn't make money. So because the market is so small, diba? So pagka the market is small, big sabihin, pag may entrant na isa, monopolist ito, na may pumasok na isa pa, so dalawa na sila, bababa yung supply curve mo, mag-expand, diba? So bababa ang price. Ngayon, pag bumaba yung price, the second one won't be able to cover costs. So aalis siya ulit because the market is so small. All right? So ganun ang situation ng natural monopoly. Now, may mga sitwasyon na may monopolist, not because there's evilness going on, but because the market is very small. All right? Okay. So a monopolist, so we're going to talk about a monopolist now. A monopolist is still a profit maximizing firm, like any perfectly competitive firm. Okay, so walang pinagkaiba ang objective ng monopolist sa perfectly competitive firm. Magkaiba lang sila ng context o magkaiba lang sila ng ginagalawang mga variables or factors. So it's still a profit maximizing firm like a competitive firm, but it still follows the profit maximizing condition, which is marginal revenue must be equal to marginal cost. Kaya lang special ang sitwasyon ng perfectly competitive firm kasi price taker siya. So yung marginal revenue niya is just equal to price. Whereas a monopolist has a different marginal revenue curve and which is different from the price line. The price line is the demand curve. Keep that in mind. For a perfectly competitive firm, the price line is horizontal. For a monopolist, kasi monopolist siya, its price line is the same as the demand curve, which is downward sloping. Okay? And the marginal revenue, therefore, is not equal to price anymore under imperfect competition, especially monopoly. Okay? So a monopolist is not an evil entity. It's just following like the conditions or the objective of like any other firm. So we don't have judgment in economics based on morality. So we treat the monopolist as just a rational economic agent trying to maximize profit. That's it. Okay, we can't fault the monopolist for trying to do that because that is the objective of every economic agent, no? Both consumers and firms. We want to maximize our welfare. Welfare for consumers is happiness or utility, and welfare for firms is profit. All right. The monopolist faces the industry demand curve, and the prices on the demand curve are what the monopolist faces. It's because the monopolist is the industry supplier. So therefore, no? So ang difference nila, drawing natin para somehow ay maging makita nyo ang difference. PC, perfectly competitive. M, monopolist. Okay, price, quantity, price, quantity. PC is what? A price taker. So this is the price line. This is the price line for the perfectly competitive. Saan ang galing tong P na to? Doon sa industry, demand and supply. Kasi ito yung industry, demand and supply, di ba? Yung intersection na to, P. Yun yung susundan niya. Okay? So itong intersection ng supply and demand, industry to This is yung nasa taas is individual, yung nasa baba ay industry. So sa industry, mag-intersect ang demand and supply. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng demanders o lahat ng consumers, lahat ng suppliers, ito represented yun ng kanilang demand and supply. Nag-intersect yan, yung equilibrium price. Yung equilibrium price na yan for the individual will be taken as a given. Alright? Kaya price taker siya. Okay? A monopolist, on the other hand, is not a price taker because he is the industry. So downward sloping ang kanyang demand. Hindi ngayon relevant ang supply kasi the price will whatever happens, the price will the monopolist will follow the price line. All right? So ngayon ang relevant to both is that MR must be equal to MC. Now recall, bakit ito ang profit maximizing condition? Profit maximizing condition. Bakit hindi MR is bigger than MC? Bakit hindi ito ang profit maximizing condition? You have to remember what we talked about before, no? So if MR is bigger than MC, it makes sense for the firm to continue to increase production. Kasi kumikita, every additional unit of the good gives additional profit. Every unit. If this is the condition, if this is the situation, MR is bigger than MC, it makes sense for the firm to continue to produce. And then when it does, diminishing marginal return steps in, and this declines eventually, and then until they get to this point. Now, if they get to this point, MR is equal to MC, and the firm produces more, then lalagpas siya, magiging ganito. Pag lumagpas siya ngayon, talo na siya kasi yung additional unit niya na pinroduce is more costly, o ibig sabihin mas mataas ang cost kesa doon sa benefit or doon sa revenue. Alright? So the firm will stop at MR is equal to MC because at this point, the profit is maximized. Okay. So ngayon, as a result, dahil price taker nga, dahil hindi na price taker ang monopolist, then he now faces the demand curve. And the price line as his demand curve. Okay. So yan ang sa monopolist. Okay. Nasa ng marginal revenue, this demand is also the price line. This demand curve is the price line. So lahat ng prices nandyan. Price 1, price 2, etc. Price 3, etc. No? And corresponding Q. Okay, Q1, Q2, Q3. Okay? Price line yan. Nasa ng marginal revenue curve ng monopolist? And the answer is, this is the price line, no? The marginal revenue is underneath. Okay? All right, sige. So in the monopoly case, price is no longer equal to marginal revenue. Example. So in this example, you have the different quantities, no? 0, 1, 2, 3. And this is the this Q and the P. You know, these represent the demand curve. No? So for the different prices, kung papansin nyo, different prices. All right. So kung 0, 200 yung price, kasi may fixed cost. Bakit ba 0? I'm sorry. Kapag 0, kapag the price is 200, walang bibili, kaya 0. When the price is 180, isang bibili. When the price is 160, dalawang bibili. When the price is 140, tatlo ang bibili, etc. So, what is total revenue? Total revenue is equal to price times quantity. So, kapag price is 200, total revenue is 0. Kapag 180, total revenue is 180. Sorry, pag 180, isa mabibili. So total revenue is 180. Kapag price is 160, there will be 2 that will be bought. So 320 ang total revenue. So ito ngayon yung total revenue, total revenue column. But what is marginal revenue? Marginal revenue is the space underneath the price line. But you can do it through the table by getting, ano ba definition natin ng marginal revenue? It is the additional revenue when you increase production by 1. Marginal. So from 0 to 1, what is the marginal revenue? It is 180 minus 0. So 180. What is the marginal revenue when you increase production by an additional unit? So 2 ka na, no? That would be 320 minus 180. So 140. So, ang total revenue, ayan. I'm sorry, marginal revenue, ayan, etc. No, so, madali lang kukunin ang marginal revenue from a table. Alright? Now, is it possible to do this mathematically? Ibig sabihin from the function? Yes, but that's beyond the scope of this class. So, you will get the marginal revenue from the table. Actually, graphically, I think pwede mong i-derive ang marginal revenue kasi nasa gitna siya hinahati niya yung space under the demand curve for the monopolist. But then you'd have to be very exact, no? Kasi kailangan mo ng ruler, etc. A way to do this mathematically is to derive the total revenue function and get the first derivative of that function, and you'll be able to get the marginal revenue function, and then i-plot mo yon, then makukuha mo yung graph o yung you'll be able to draw the marginal revenue curve. Pero yung calculation ng marginal revenue through mathematical means is for economics majors. Hindi naman natin kailangan malaman pa how to do that in order to appreciate microeconomics. So hindi na siya kasali. Pero you can derive the marginal revenue numbers from a table. Okay? All right. So dito sa example naman, dito sa table naman na to, I guess a final word, no? Makikita nyo dun sa bandang baba, no? Dito sa bandang ito, nagne-negative na yung marginal revenue. So ibig sabihin, somewhere between 480 and 500 is a place where MR what is the situation wherein you have max profit max. Hindi mo lang masabi kung alam baka yung hindi 5, kundi 5, maybe 5.1 or 5.2 na quantity. Okay. So maximum total revenue is at Q equal 5. So ito yung maximum total revenue natin from the graph. No? So at Q is equal to 5, quantity is 5. Kita nyo yung quantity, Q is 5. MR is 20, marginal revenue is 20. Pag nag-6 na, it's negative 20. So, maximum revenue mo na at this point would be at 5. Unless nga, you can subdivide the quantity into 5.1. Kaya lang kung t-shirt kasi ito, wala namang 5.1 na t-shirt. So, I guess you stop at 5 kasi beyond 5, yung marginal revenue mo now is now negative. Okay. This is so annoying. Okay, above 5, the demand is inelastic, so decrease in price will result in decline in total revenue. So, can natin ulit, above 5, the demand is inelastic, so the decrease in price will result in decline in total revenue. So, kapag ka inelastic ulit, when the demand is inelastic, what is an option? What is the better option for the firm? Should it have a price increase or a price decrease? When demand is inelastic, a firm that supplies or that sells goods, would it be better for the firm to increase the price or decrease the price if it wants to increase its revenue? Anyone? When the demand is inelastic, pag sinabing inelastic, it is insensitive to price changes. Ibig sabihin, when you increase price by 1%, quantity demanded will decline by less than 1%. So if that's the case, is it better for a firm to increase or decrease price? Anyone? Inelastic. Ala,
Increase po.
increase. Correct. If the demand is inelastic, a firm is better off increasing the price. Okay? Because an increase in price will result in higher revenues, and a decrease in price will result in decline in total decline in total revenue. Okay, so this is how we draw this now, yung total revenue and marginal revenue curve. So yung nasa kaliwa is the price line. Alright. Ngayon, pag pinlat natin lahat ng revenues for each price and quantity combination, we will find out that the shape of the total revenue curve is inverted bowl. Alright, so this is empirical. Ibig sabihin, this is not theoretical. Pagka pinrise times quantity natin lahat nung nandun sa price line at pinlat natin yon and turned it into a graph, the shape is this one. Okay, that is the total revenue curve. Now, notice that dito sa total revenue curve, yung left side, pag hinati natin yung total revenue curve into two, the left side is elastic, the right side is inelastic, and then yung tuktok is unitary elastic. Okay, so that means kapag tiningnan natin ito sa price line, pag transfer natin doon, yung itong portion na to, no, mababa pa yung price. Alright, yung portion na yan, alright, that could correspond to this portion. Tapos ito unitary elastic, tapos ito inelastic. Okay? Alright. Now, bakit importante yan? Importante yan para sa exam nyo. Kasi pag nagka-calculate kayo ng mga bagay-bagay o kailangan nyo ng guide, alam nyo na yung portion, upper portion ng demand curve mo ay ganito ang elasticity or it's elastic or inelastic. Sometimes the number isn't what you need. You just need to know that it's elastic or inelastic to be able to answer questions or to be able to at least picture what's going to happen next. All right? So, maximum revenue is when E is equal to, the elasticity is equal to 1. Okay, so when price in this case is equal to average revenue, no? So hindi siya katulad doon sa perfect competition that perfect competition price equals MC. For imperfect competition, price is equal to price is equal to MR. All right, sa perfect competition. Sa imperfect competition, price is equal to AR. Yun ang main difference. Okay, so under imperfect competition, price is equal to average revenue. So therefore, and price times quantity is equal to total revenue, and therefore price is equal to total revenue divided by Q and therefore equal to AR. Now that's how we know that derived through those. All right, so therefore this is equal to P, which is that one. Marginal revenue would be negative if the price decreases so much that it results in a lower revenue than before. So when we say the marginal revenue is negative, ibig sabihin the price has decreased so much that it results in lower revenue than before. Okay. So example would be, let's say total revenue for 5 units. Let's say the price of each unit is 100. So, or the price of 5 units is 100 each. So the total revenue is 500. To sell 6 units, the price must be lower than 100, say 80, because this is imperfect competition. And so for 6, total revenue will be 6 times 80. Kasi di ba downward sloping ito eh. Iba-iba price niya. Oops, here. So when the price is when the price is 100, it's 5. In order to sell 6, the price must be 80. Okay? So therefore, the marginal revenue of the 6th unit is negative 20. Kapag multiply, tingnan nyo. Kaya yung marginal revenue nyo is negative, katulad nung nandun sa graph. Okay? Because your total revenue declined. Okay, so elasticity and marginal revenue notes, just for your information. When the marginal revenue is greater than 0, that you're in that portion of the demand curve that's elastic. If the marginal revenue is equal to 0, then you're at that point where you're at that point on the graph that's unitary elastic. And when the marginal revenue is less than 0, then you're on the part of the graph where the demand is inelastic. Okay, so in this case, for imperfect competition, price is greater than MR. No, if you recall yung shape, yung itsura niyan, tama naman, consistent kasi ito yung price line, ito yung marginal revenue. So therefore, price is always bigger than marginal revenue. Okay, so marginal revenue would therefore be price minus reduced revenue on all units. So in perfect competition, this is what happens. For imperfect, price is equal to AR, but not equal to MR. Okay, so for profit maximization, it's still MR is equal to MC. This is what's followed by all firms. Okay, whether you're perfectly competitive or you're imperfectly competitive, everybody follows that or uses that guide to maximize profit. Okay, so profit maximizing condition is attained when output is at the level wherein the firm's marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Now, I started to explain this earlier because when marginal revenue is bigger than marginal cost, what is the logical step for the firm to do? It is to increase production more. Benta pa kasi yung additional unit, there's marginal profit kasi MR minus MC is marginal profit. Diba? As long as MR is bigger than MC, your marginal profit is positive. You want that. Diba? When MR is less than MC, then your marginal profit will be negative. As long as your marginal profit is positive, the firm should continue to increase production by 1 ng 1. Then, pagka naman umabot na siya dun sa MR is equal to MC, ito na yung maximum na profit. Kasi remember that every time marginal profit is positive, what happens to total profit? When marginal profit is positive, what happens to total profit? Sagot. Total profit is expanding. It's increasing. Every time marginal profit is positive, total profit is rising. But when total profit is negative, marginal profit is negative, total profit is declining. Okay, kaya profit maximizing condition is when MR is equal to MC or MR minus MC is 0. Pag na-attain mo na to, pag sumobra ka pa dyan, magiging negative na yung marginal profit mo. Okay? All right. So this is an illustration of what I just told you about. That this is how you can see, what we just talked about. Kung kailan ang marginal profit mo ay 0 na. So dito sa table na to, the marginal profit that is 0 would be somewhere in between here. Somewhere, no? So it's between 4 and 5. Assuming na it's that you can subdivide the quantity na 4.1, 4.2 somewhere. Kasi dito lang hindi perfect yung example kasi may fraction yung quantity. Okay, so graphical illustration of profit maximization dito yan. So paano natin illustrate yan? Take note of the graph on your left and the graph on your right. Okay. Dito sa left, okay, wag niyo munang pansinin yung nasa right, that marginal profit is at the point, marginal profit being 0 or profit max is at the point where MR is equal to MC. Dito, this is MR. This line is MR, di ba? Illustrate natin. Ipatong ngayon natin yung marginal cost curve, which is this one, which is the same for all firms. It doesn't matter kung perfectly competitive ka or monopolist ka. Your marginal cost curve looks the same. It's U-shaped. So in this case, MR is equal to MC. Eto yon. So what is the price when MR is equal to MC? Project up, and this is the price. So ito yung profit maximizing condition. But since MR is not equal to P, you have to find what the price is. So the price would be akyat ka pataas. That is the price. Okay. This is the last slide for chapter 9. But since kinapos na tayo ng panahon, I will quickly go over this next time we meet after the reading break, which is Tuesday after the reading break. Ililinisin ko lang yung discussion itong last slide na to, and then we'll talk about chapter 10. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good reading break, or tama ba, reading break or rest na lang ang tawag natin. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you all Tuesday after the reading break, right before Holy Week. Okay, thank you so much, and ingat kayo.
Thank you.
Ralph, Eddie, and Patricia, meron ba tayong kailangan pag-usapan before I go? Wala naman?
Yung part 2 na lang po, yes.
I have meetings all day, so baka mamayang gabi ko pa yan magawa. So bukas na lang natin, pakisabi na lang bukas na i-release.
Sige po.
Okay, maraming salamat. Ingat kayo.
Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.